Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch, a weekly show amplifying the voices of the Virginia grassroots. Each week, we provide engaging conversations about politics, culture, and women making change. Produced by the unstoppable women of Network Nova, our motto is, when we vote, we win. The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done.
Live from Network Nova, it's December 6th, and yes, you are on the Friday Power Lunch. I'm Katherine White, your host, and we are bringing you the guests, the issues, the action. We fuel the grassroots across Virginia and across the nation, and we have so much to talk about today about what makes politics fun and also how we get it done. So we're glad you're in the room. And I want to make sure that today, when you know about the theme, what's important now, we talk about time, strength, and courage. We have guests that we want to focus on that are really, really what we feel like is important to talk about. So I want to welcome from Kati Hornung, co-founder and executive, wave up there, of VoteEquality. And of course, you see my shirt. It is published, the ERA. We're really excited to talk about what's important now. Let's get this done. And also special elections. Yes. And as Kannan said in the green room, who's a candidate running in the Senate District 32, he reminded us that this is just as important as the trifecta, that we win these special elections. So we have Kannan Srinivasan. He's the former Virginia delegate in House District 26. And alongside him, we're going to have JJ Singh. JJ is new to the room. Welcome, JJ. And he is a candidate running for House District 26. Very important we win these races. And also, let's talk about what we want to make sure that we keep our muscles ready for legislative action. So today we're going to be talking about skilled games, what they mean in the district, and how come they're so still. Everybody is talking about them, and people think this is going to be still a contentious issue in the Virginia legislature this year. We have Shantell Rock here. She's a Prince William County resident who's very involved in her community on so many levels to talk about the impacts of that. And Rhena Hicks is here. Hello, Rhena. She's the executive director from Freedom, Virginia. So we're so glad everybody's here with us. And I know that we're all talking about what we can do now. And with us to talk more about that is Louisa Borowski. She is the lead of the Grassroots Virginia Coalition. Welcome, Louisa.
Katherine, so great to see you.
A drink of water after that.
Yeah, you should. There's a lot going on in Virginia, as we all know, and it's a great opportunity not only for Virginians to get involved, but for folks from outside the state as well. So hopefully we'll give you some ideas about how to keep active. I always talk about it as activism therapy. If you don't want to listen to the news, go do something instead. We have so many opportunities. So the first thing I want to talk about is that the Virginia Grassroots Coalition has created a federal response team that is creating calls to action to deal with what is happening on the Hill. So you can find them at the Grassroots Coalition's website at virginiagrassroots.org. And we've got 3 actions that we're focused on this week. So the first being telling Biden to publish the ERA. And I know you're going to hear more about that. But Dennis, who is with us, is going to put a link in the chat so that you can easily take action. Second one is tell the senators that you oppose the cabinet nominees that are being put up. So there are particularly 3 of them that we want to make sure our senators are hearing from us about, and Dennis will have the link for that too. And then we want to make sure we're protecting immigrants. We're very concerned about what Trump has been saying, about what he's going to be doing related to that topic. And the sooner we can get out in front of that, the better. So there's a petition for you to sign for that too. We're going to continue to publish these calls to action. And then you will start to see in January also calls to action related to our General Assembly session. So just know there'll be a lot of opportunities for you to get active, for you to have your voice heard. But just as a reminder, when we've talked to our legislators in the past, they say it's so important for us to be sending these messages to them because it gives them cover. So if they need to vote in a particular way, or if, they need to know that they have constituents who are asking them to do that, because they will always be hearing from the other side. So if you think, oh, well, maybe my call's not going to make a difference, or maybe my email is just one of many, that's okay. That is so important. So please take those extra 30 seconds or minute to send that email or make that phone call, because it's going to be critical going forward. Also, share them with friends. The more people, the better. So as I mentioned, we do have our General Assembly session that we're getting ready for. We sent out our legislative priorities letter from the coalition right before Thanksgiving, and now we're meeting with a bunch of our legislators to talk about our common goals and priority bills. One of the top priorities for our session this starting in January will be passing our 3 constitutional amendments through the State House and Senate. And the reason this is so important is the governor can't veto them. So we know he vetoed a lot last year. And so we're trying to think and be strategic about what is really possible that we can do. And these constitutional amendments are absolutely possible and critical. What we need to do is the state Senate and House need to pass them this year. Then they need to pass them again next year, which will then put them on the ballot in 2026. So ways that you can be helpful are just talking about these amendments, right? So the first one is establishing a right to contraception and abortion. Huge issue, and we know really good issue with voters. Second, a right to same-sex marriage. And then third, the automatic restoration of the right to vote after completion of a sentence for a felony conviction. These are 3 key areas that we want to make sure are getting into our Constitution so that it's not legislation that can be overturned if other things change in Virginia in the future. Obviously, we don't want them to, but we want to have our game plan. So talk about these. It's important we keep communicating about the amendments so voters understand them and are ready to support them in 2026. We know that a lot of people aren't really that clued in as to what's happening in the legislature. This is something we need everybody to know about. So I encourage you to make these amendments part of your everyday conversations at the grocery store, at your book clubs, at soccer games, wherever. Talk about the amendments so people know that they are happening. We're going to dive into more details on the General Assembly session on January 10th's Power Lunch, which is going to be our press conference. So more details to come then. And finally, I am so glad that we have the candidates for our January 7th special elections on the Power Lunch today. As you probably know, these are must-win seats for Democrats. We need to maintain our majorities in the House and Senate, not only to pass those constitutional amendments, but to block any bad legislation that's being introduced by Republicans and/or being funneled through the governor's office. Additionally, we have a Democrat who's running in Senate District 10, Jack Trammell, just won that primary. I guess he was the only one running, so it made it a little bit easier. Very excited to have him running. He previously ran for Congress in 2014 against the Republican Dave Bratt in the 7th Congressional District. And Jack is currently a college professor and sociologist at Mount St. Mary's University in Maryland. And he owns a farm and lives in Louisa County, Virginia. So while he might work for University of Maryland, most of that I'm sure is virtual, and his home is in Louisa County. So I'm going to put some information about Jack into the chat as well if you want to learn more about him or donate to his campaign. It is important that we fight for every seat, and even though Senate District 10 is pretty red, we want to make sure we show up. And we also know these special elections usually are very, very low turnout. And so there's a very good chance that you can win a special election that might be a pretty red seat if you just get your people out to vote. So lots of excitement around both the elections and the General Assembly and actions we can take federally. So just a plethora of options for
Yeah.
things to do.
Oh, look at you with the big P word on a Friday, plethora. I love it. And it's true. And it's so much to do. And this is why when we're talking about the strategy today, Louisa, the win, what's important now, it's like, just like take one little piece at a time, get this done, move on. It's so important. So I'm so glad that people have stuff to do. And especially I want people to put on your calendar that we will be we have one more show December 13th, and then we come back January 3rd. And January 10th, we have the big, Louisa will be heading up the big legislative session where we do a great show on that. And we hope you guys will come back for that. So thank you, Louisa, for everything you do.
You're welcome.
Oh man, I was just thinking, guys, it's cold out. Are you out of your blankets or what? How are you surviving this little chill today?
Well,
currently have my big fuzzy sweater on.
I got my turtleneck on, but I'll be hot in a minute. But before we get started, I just wanted to sort of pick up on a couple of things that Louisa said, because I think that they're so important. And I think that I want to just herald them back to our last conversation when we talked about Linda Hersham and her playbook. And I wanted to also talk about Mary McLeod Bethune, because there were a couple of things that they both have in common. And that is the talk and knock far and wide. And Louisa talked about these 3 amendments. And she said, talk about them every day in every conversation. And it reminded me of Linda Hersham's, the 70, which is, getting people together in everywhere that you can and talking to them about this kind of these amendments and why they're so important. So I think that we'll have some really good points in the after chat to think about how these important issues that Louisa just talked about, how we can sort of apply them right now to the discussions that we've been having about how we move forward.
Yeah. Carrie, what are you thinking about with that? Any of those?
Well, I would say I would have everyone, if you want to hear a little bit more about it, we did cover it at the last Friday Power Lunch. So that's a great synopsis of each of the
Right.
amendments. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, good.
I loved her. I did love Louisa's comment about activist therapy, by taking action. I can relate to that. I know we're going to talk about that in a minute.
I know we are, but I do think that's, we're trying to talk about like taking a strategy of short-term goals. It is that therapy that we sometimes need to get back to what we like to do and all that. And speaking of that, I want to make sure that we take a moment to think about somebody really important that we lost this back on November 17th, Irene Schubert, who is a member of many of our groups and in the Grassroots Coalition and friends with many in this room, and just a badass warrior and just so wonderful. She passed away on November 17th, and I wanted to make sure what we remembered Irene today, and we'll do this show, talk about activist therapy in memory of Irene.
Yeah, I wanted to just say we had this little group that we used to get together every Monday to talk about TikTok and writing letters and things like that. And Irene was one of the members of the groups, along with a few others, Julie Galdo, who's on the call, Hal Donahue, and a few others. And she was just there every single week. And so it really made me sad, but it also, made me think about how wonderful she was. And so I'm really going to miss her, and I'm very sad, but I'm also inspired by the work that she did. I mean, all the way through.
Yeah, no doubt. I just went thinking about it right now and channeling that kind of energy, because she was always great. You pop in the room, Irene would be there and talk about ideas. She was ready to go. And even when she couldn't do a lot, she'd be like, I'm canvassing wherever I am. I mean, she was awesome. And I know many will miss her. So today we'll keep her in mind as we do the show. And I think when we were talking about, when we took our break and we were really talking about how we do these next steps. I mean, can you just have enough of all the crazy stuff? I think people in the chat are talking about it. They're sick of who. They're sick of already the appointments and them grabbing all the space. And it sometimes could be so overwhelming. And we really talked about what's really important now, and resilience, which is like, because when we're practiced and we're prepared, when things happen, we could take a breath and we can get ourselves ready to do more, taking care of ourselves and our family and what's important now to do the next stage of work. So I want to talk about that with you today and talk about how when you think about resilience, and I'll start with Finale, your response to what's going on and what your coping strategy is.
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is I'm tired. I'm tired.
I'm tired.
I never imagined that I could be on such a high and drop to such a low. But I
Right?
will tell you, Catherine, that every time that when we join this show and I see you dancing to the music, it always is such inspiration and it always makes me so happy. But I really want to just take just a couple of minutes and talk about, me personally being tired. And I've had to really choose where I spend my time, and that it's okay for me to take time. I think about Sam, who put out some lights for me for just for the holidays, and they're by solar. And then there's some nights that they're really bright, and then there are other nights when they're barely shining. I'm like, the sun did not shine on these today, which is sort of how I feel sometimes. Is that some mornings, based on the things that I've heard and
Right.
seen, I feel bright and lit up. And then there are other days where the light just isn't shining. But what that means is that I just need a little more sunshine. And for me, that's rest. And I think it's okay for people to recognize that you don't
Mhm.
have to stop everything, but you have to figure out your lanes and how you're going to rejuvenate yourself. And it also makes me think about, the geese. Whenever geese fly, they're in formation, right? And
Right.
everybody knows that they're in formation because the ones at the front are taking the lead, and the ones in the back are sort of, they're resting, right? Because of it. And then they change positions later on so that
Right.
someone else can get a little rest. And that's how I feel about this team is that okay, I might be taking a little time, not as strong as I usually am for some of the things that I do, but that's okay because the team is flying in formation and they give me the opportunity to take the rest and care that I need for myself so that I can be ready to go when I'm ready. And I don't know when that will be, but I think it'll be pretty quickly because I get rejuvenated pretty fast. But I just want people to feel like it is okay to take a little time and rejuvenate, find the things that give you strength and find the people that give you strength so that you can move to the little back of the formation until you're ready to come forward.
Yeah, I like that. And I would say the strategy of setting those smaller goals, like you said, being with positive people, talking positively, all these things matter. So when you can really do that, that self-management where we can stand back and have a better perspective, about a lot of stuff going on. So I appreciate that. And Carrie, you had talked about this too, about your strength.
Right. I think sticking together, I'm glad you mentioned the whole geese thing because for me, the way that I get through this is I focus on being strong for others. And I think it's because either in my activism, in my faith, in my motherhood style, I I get my energy from being with other people. And right now, people are hurting. And I'm sure a lot of people, in the Zoom room right now can really relate to friends calling and saying, "What can I do? What should I do? I can't be here. I can't watch another news. I can't do it." So I feel like I've been coping by being strong for other people. I mean, that's how I get my strength is
Right.
sharing it with other people. I'm trying to be strong for other people. I feel like it's leadership in crisis for some of us because we've taken the commitment of being a leader. And
Right.
so now we are also having to perform this leadership in a time of crisis, in a time where we're doubtful, where we're hurting. And so that is one way I've been looking at it. Also, just trying to give people the space that they need to express their grief. I've been invited to speak to a couple of groups here locally and let them say their piece and then channel that into something that might motivate them. This is really where my head has been. And then
Love it.
offering resources for action. That's why they come to us. That's why. So I feel a big obligation to other people right now, but it's okay because that's what makes me feel better.
That's what makes, and look, I see people in the chat really responding about, well, one, Tasha saying she just finally went back to the gym. Other folks, really saying, I'm not listening to the news. I think we have to figure out how to cope with this because look, some days I wake up and I look at my husband, I'll be like, is it really true
I
that
know.
this happened. It's like a nightmare you keep sometimes waking up from. So, with that said, it is what it is. And so, the courage is what drives me when I realized myself to get through really big things in my life where I needed to really have the courage and find that almost command it from within me to, because it was so important to, like, have that strength and have that courage to just go ahead and stand up and do what's right. It reminds me of the Wizard of Oz, the lion, and you kind of feel like that. You're trying to have the courage, but we're gonna need it. And I think because so much is going to be happening, that what gives me also that backbone is that I know we can do it. And I know I'm around people that have my back. And so it's kind of easy to have the courage, but we know that a lot's going to happen. So we are going to have to be mentally tough and mentally ready, whether we like it or not. So, courage is what drives me to make sure that, I can keep going every day to get through this. So
yes, and I think the Friday Power Lunch dealing with bravery a couple of weeks ago was also really, really solid, because we're trying to channel that right now, trying to be there for others in my case. And I just want to bring it back to Irene, because if you think for 1 second that what you're doing doesn't matter,
right,
think of the impact that Irene had on other people.
Right.
And that will tell you how much of an impact you're making on other people right now by being a leader, by stepping into this space with courage.
I think that's exactly right. And one of the things that I often think about is, you read some of the articles, because I haven't watched the news since the election, and so I'll see what happens with that. But lots of reading, though, for really good things that can give you courage and power and strength, because we're going to have to probably do some things that we haven't had to do before. And so I think that's going to be really important to figure out where we channel that courage, and that when the time comes, that we actually have it. So
yeah. Well, I want to make an announcement on the Power Lunch that courage that I, was a little nervous about saying, okay, the 9th annual Women's Summit, are we going to do it? And I just decided, with everything in line and talking to people, that yes, we are going to do a 9th annual Women's Summit. And mark your calendar right now, everybody in the room, June 27th through the 29th. That's a Friday to Sunday. We are going to have our big event, and it's going to be at the McLean Hilton. Courage. I decided, let's do it. I'm surrounded by people that are awesome. And this goes so important, because, folks, we have a big election, 100 House seats. We have the statewide. We have special elections. We have candidates that are going to be running. We need to keep going and have the courage to do it. So super. So let's get this party started. I love that Peggy already has her hand up, but Peggy, save that for the after chat. But I love that. I love our community. So with that said, let's talk about what's important now with our first guest. Let's move it over to publish the ERA, talking about Washington, D.C., and what's going on in the Capitol with Kati Hornung. Let's talk about first. Take us through, why is this important now, Kati? What are you thinking? You could be doing something else. What are you doing down in DC trying to publish the ERA?
Yeah. So, hi to everybody. And for those of you who don't know me, I ran the VA Ratify ERA campaign when I ran it from 2018 to 2020, and it ended with a successful publication. And I thought, great, we're done. Or, what's a successful ratification in Virginia? I thought it'd get published right away. Here we are 4 years later, and our team had kind of pivoted and was working more nationally and helping some of the unratified states and voter suppression states. So we've made a lot of friends in other places. And then November 5th happened this year. And by about 10:30 at night, I could see that it was done. And I just felt really numb. And I woke up the next morning still feeling very, very numb. And then something clicked in at about the 12-hour mark of numbness. And I just was pissed. I was super pissed. I was like, that's it. Virginia's taking back the ERA. We're going to DC. We're going to graffiti all over our RV. No more, pink flowers and purple and super cute. We are now down in the streets. This is a street fight. We graffitied in black and white. We're wearing all black all the time. And I'm like a half step from just wanting to put the war paint on because what the hell is going on? And why are we not publishing the Equal Rights Amendment? We need every possible thing to strengthen our democracy to be done right now. And so we're up here in DC. The context has shifted. And we've kind of, our team sees it as this is our last shot at publishing this amendment, this set of 24 words, and it's now or never.
Well, let's get to like some, there is the debate whether it can happen or not. Let's set that aside for a minute. It's okay. But let's talk about this tool that we need to fight in our toolbox and how important it is, like right now because of the election. I mean, that's what's driving you.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, there are people that think, oh, we need congressional action. And just this past week, about a week ago today, I dropped an op-ed in USA Today and said, we need to publish this immediately. And unbeknownst to me, on November 22nd, 46 senators had sent the same message to Biden directly. So congressional action, whatever, the senators are saying Biden needs to publish. And so we're pushing hard in this publication direction because the same ruckus that we make about publishing will be the same ruckus that is protective of this amendment if anybody wants to try to pull back gender equality out of our Constitution.
Yeah, so let's go into like right now, all the work that you led in Virginia. I mean, I just want to make sure everybody understands also, and I really firmly believe we need to take credit for this, Katie, is that your work on the ERA and all the groups that worked on that together and came into Virginia those several years to get it ratified. Also, that's when we won the trifecta. Hello. So that energy getting all these people excited about ratifying also won us the trifecta. And I think we cannot lose sight of what it means when like right now we have the 3 constitutional amendments. This could be just as equally as galvanizing. So we really won back our blue by fighting for women's rights. So I'm so excited to say that. But in the naysayers and I've seen this communications that, now that it's sitting at the archivist and the naysayers are having this kind of, no, it's not going to happen. What do you say to them? And what are the simple steps that it is sitting right there at the archivist, right?
Yes. Yeah, we are just like this close. The thing I want to tell people that are naysayers is if the Republicans were this close to making whatever evil change they wanted to make in our Constitution, they would not hesitate. And I don't understand this whole I'm sorry, the decorum has not been handled quite correctly enough. Like, we don't have time for that. It is time to just push really hard and say, let's go. Let's do this. This is the right thing to do. It has been more than a century in the making. Next Tuesday is the 101-year anniversary of this amendment. And that is way too long for women, girls, and LGBTQ plus community to be waiting for constitutional equality.
Yeah. And I think when we do act with our values and we do move courageously, I think we get rewarded for that. It's when we sort of clutch our pearls a little bit that, it doesn't work. And I agree. I just want to remind people right now what Republicans are doing in North Carolina by trying to take away power of an election. They have no problem figuring out new things to do to strip the power out of here. We had an election. They're going to, pass something before Democrats take power to take away their power. And so I'm with you on that. Like, let's stop that crap and just go for it. So how do people get in the fight with you? I mean, we want to protect equality. It seems like if this moment is it, we need to do it. That's how we need to behave going forward. So what could creatively talk about the kind of the activities you've been doing? Tell us now that you're in DC, we saw you down there with your big van and all that, but tell us what kind of actions you've been doing and what you're going to do next week.
Yeah, so we're basically taking the Virginia playbook and using it again in DC. It was super effective in Virginia. And so it is an amplify, amplify, amplify playbook. It is about spreading the word, making sure everybody knows all of the steps to be done, that, hey, Biden could do this. So it's kind of an education, but also an invitation as we educate. And so what we're doing on Tuesday is we're going to do something that we're calling the Relay for Rights. We always try to be creative, fun, inviting, but also very on point with the messaging. So we're going to have a little relay where we pass a copy of the Constitution about 6.5 city blocks, because that is how close we are. from the bottom of the White House on Constitution Avenue all the way down to the National Archives on Constitution Avenue. And we've got lots of people coming in from around the country. As I said, we've made a lot of friends as we've traveled, and they are going to show up. We've heard there might be a bus coming in from Illinois. And so for all the people from Virginia on this call who showed up again and again and again and made sure that Virginia ratified, we have to flood DC. They have to know that Virginia wants this ratification done, that we want this held up in the Constitution.
Yeah, I love the action next week. And so that is on the Tuesday?
It's on Tuesday. Yep, that's on Tuesday.
And then when you're going to share your links in there, there's actions kind of almost every day leading up until give us a quick timetable so people know what your game is here and how you're going to play this out and when Biden's.
Yeah. So our goal is to just build a crescendo of noise, of beautiful invitations, and of come on, Biden, get this done. You can pardon your son, pardon me. Like, let's go. So
get out of my mouth. I was saying the same thing. I'm like, yeah, but you can pass the RA, right?
Yeah. So the goal is to keep building it. I will say we've got a field HQ here in DC. If people want to come up and spend a couple days, we've got a place for you to stay. We've got some really wonderful other supporter housing people involved with Network Nova who will open up their home and let kind of known volunteers coming into the city. And we've got, we're going to keep building this momentum. So we've got the event on Tuesday. We're going to do another thing on December 23rd. It's a Monday. Most people are going to have that day off. We're going to do a big nationwide screening of Ratified, which does such a beautiful job of talking about the importance of flipping the seats to get the equality people into their seats. I think it just does it. It's obviously an issue option. Right. About the ERA, but it does really tie back to the larger democratic issues. So we've got that on the 23rd, and then we're going to work on the 23rd when we do this. It'll have a great panel afterwards. Pat Spearman's going to be on the panel. Andrea Miller's going to be on the panel. Easton Weber, who's our little
Easton, cool
hero arc in the movie, she'll be on the panel. So we're going to have that panel on
Which theater, Katie?
This is going to be online, so anybody can do it
online. Okay,
it's going to be fabulous. And I'll get that out to you all as soon as we're going to have that up in the next day or two. But we'll be doing that on the 23rd, and then anybody there with us on the 23rd is going to get the secret sauce recipe for a big viral thing that we're working on for the 28th, for the 28th Amendment.
I love it. So look, everybody, this is the kind of activist therapy we all need. At first I was a little worried about the published only because I thought we just had that heartache and I didn't want our hearts breaking again. I'm over that now. It took me a day or two and I'm like, yeah, let's go all in. And for all I want for Christmas is the ERA. So let's hope that we'll get that done. So thank you, Katie, for everything you've done. Folks, if you're just tuning in, we have Kati Hornung here. She's executive director, co-founder of VoteEquality. So thank you, Katie. Put your links in there. Let's follow it, get in there. And then Finale Norton, what's important now, Finale?
What's important now is the special election that's coming up on January 7th. That's what's important now. And so I'm really excited to get to talk to JJ Singh, who is running for HD 26, and also Kannan, our current delegate. I was going to talk to both of them at the same time because I thought that would be more wonderful. Yes. So JJ, hi, how are you? It's very nice to meet you. This is my first time having the opportunity to meet you. So congratulations on winning the nomination and welcome to the show. And Kannan, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So here's the first thing that I want to say is this election, in terms of what's important now, is really what's important now. It's sort of like a bellwether. So JJ, why don't you just take a few minutes, well, not even a few minutes, but introduce yourself. And then, and the best part is that Kannan has already endorsed you. So that says a lot to our audience already because we know and love Kannan. So talk a little bit about you and a little bit about the bellwether you see in this election.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be a part of this show and this group. I'm the son of Indian immigrants. I was born here in Northern Virginia, a product of our public schools, went to the University of Virginia. And two of the key values in my family growing up were hard work and serving others. And my service journey started when I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Bolivia, right out of college. And no one who ever looked like me had done the Peace Corps before. It was a bit of a challenging experience. On top of that, I lived at an altitude of 12,000 feet for 2.5 years with no heat. And despite that, we were able to help farmers improve their incomes. And I worked with single indigent mothers who we gave microcredit loans to start and grow their businesses. Following that, I worked in the US Senate for Senator Chris Coons from Delaware for several years as his economic policy advisor. And during that time, we faced the rise of the Tea Party and Ted Cruz, and we passed several bills to improve the state of manufacturing and small businesses. And currently, I'm in the hospitality sector, and during the pandemic, we managed to deliver a project on time, under budget, that created 70 new jobs at a time when people were cutting payroll and laying people off. And the point of all this, and what I'm trying to say, is that I've persevered through some tough times, and tough times call for tough people. And that's what we're facing right now. And so some of the issues, well, let me pause right there because I know Kannan has a lot to say, but I've been delighted to work with Delegate Kannan Srinivasan, who endorsed me. And he is amazing, very hard worker, very effective legislator, and I'm thrilled to be on the ticket with him on January 7th.
That is pretty awesome. I'm going to pause you there, and I'm going to bring in Kannan because I do have a couple of questions for both of you that I'm sure everybody's going to be interested in hearing. So Kannan, you have been in the House already, and now you're going to run for the Senate to take over the seat that Suhas left. And so just talk a little bit about that and why that's so important.
Well, thank you, Finale. It's so wonderful to see so many friends here. For me and my wife coming to Network Nova events, meeting Network Nova team is always such a big pleasure. We both have learned so much from all of you. I'm so proud of the work you do. You've made so much difference. And I'm very honored to be the Democratic nominee to replace Suhas in the Senate District 32. It's half of Loudoun. So Loudoun has two state senators. One is Senator Russet Perry. The other one is Senator Suhas Subramaniam, who's now congressman-elect. So this seat is what I'm running. 100% of my House district is in the Senate district. It's all within Loudoun, no Fairfax, no Prince William in the new redistricting map. Excuse me, it's all Eastern Loudoun, covering almost all of Ashburn, South Riding, Arcola, Aldie, Brambleton, where I live. My wife and I have lived in Loudoun since 99. I've worked in Loudoun since 97. Many of you know my story, working for Ashurian for 24 years, then working for Chef Jose Andres in the restaurant business. He's a huge inspiration for me. And I do this full time now. And I've been so fortunate to have passed 8 bills in the last session, most of them bipartisan, on gun safety, women's reproductive rights, and also, pocketbook issues, voting rights. And I bring the same passion and hard work and my work ethic to the Senate. I'm also happy to say I'm also a member of Privileges and Elections Committee. And we met on November 13th, 3 days before my primary. And I was there. I wouldn't miss this. We voted on all 3 constitutional amendments. So we have moved that to the General Assembly. So we passed it before November 16th deadline. So it'll be taken up in the new session on January 8th when we gavel in back in Richmond. And that is why this election is so important. We are 21-19 in the House, in the Senate, which is now 20 with Senator Suhas Subramaniam going to Congress. And we are 51-49, which will be 50-49. And that's why we need JJ Singh. That's why, the Senate seat is so important. And I think this is a great opportunity, Finale and team, to send a very strong message. This is the first election after Trump trifecta. And I was telling the LCDC meeting last night, this is our big opportunity to push back and send a message that, Virginia is not going back. We are going to keep the majority, and this will be the first step to get Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger elected as the next governor. Because once we get trifecta, when we had trifecta before, a couple of years ago, we did Medicaid expansion. As you all know, I was in the Medicaid board for 7 years. Last year, I was the chairman. Medicaid was extraordinary. Thanks to every one of you who worked so hard. We expanded Medicaid, brought healthcare to more than 1.5 million new people in Virginia. We also expanded voting rights, no questions asked early voting, climate change investment, the list goes on. And we can do so much more when we have trifecta enrichment. But for that to happen, we need to win these elections on January 7th. The early voting starts this Wednesday, believe it or not. Coming Wednesday, December 11th, early voting starts. Vote by mail is available. Leesburg location is available. On December 28th and January 4th, there will be 2 more locations available on 2 Saturdays. There's a ton of opportunity to canvass. I dropped my Mobilize link. There's a joint canvas for JJ and myself. I'll drop it again. Whatever help you can provide, no help is too small.
Yeah.
Whether it's phone banking, whether it's coming out to canvas here, whether it's writing postcards, calling your friends, because we talked about what's the therapy now, right? This is one form of therapy because
Yes.
we know special elections can be tricky. We know that.
Yes, they can.
Because of weather, we don't know what the weather is going to be like on January 7th. We could have 4 inches of snow. We don't know that. But what we know is we can start voting on December 11th. And once we are well organized, once we win these 2 seats and keep it blue, that message will be sent because the other side will clearly try to snatch this from us.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I want to know what you guys think about this. We sort of had this last election as to tell us what has happened, what went right, and what things that we can really accelerate on. And so from you guys, I'd really like to know, because this is so important, this is where everybody can sort of be like that formation of the geese. And if someone needs to rest, you can come from other states, you can come from everywhere and help push this election forward, because it is the bellwether, because this election will, this is how you keep people safe. This is how we stay safe in Virginia. We stay safe in Virginia by making sure we set up for Abigail and that we set up the House and the Senate. So no matter where you are in Virginia, you can participate because this is how we stay safe. So before I conclude, are there any lessons? Is there anything that you guys want to tell us to say, this is what I need you to go do?
Yes. So back in 2009, now leader Herring ran in Alexandria in a special election. And this was after President-elect Barack Obama won in a landslide in November 2008. And she won that race in Alexandria by 18 votes in Alexandria. And so this is Loudoun. Loudoun has shifted right in this last election, similar to national trends. And anything can happen in a special election. And in my primary, in 6 days, we knocked on 4,750 doors. We need to amp that up dramatically in order to get the turnout that we need to win. Now, whether turnout looks like 5% of the electorate, probably a little higher, 8%, 10%, whatever the number is, we need to be prepared for any scenario to knock on as many doors as we can. And let me just tell you something. My mom, who was 76 years old, recent knee replacement surgery, along with 8 of her friends, who I call super aunties, came out and knocked doors in 37-degree weather and rain the day before my primary, and they're ready to run it back. I'm out there knocking hundreds of doors. Everybody else is. If you're in Virginia, we have canvas launches all the time. Come help out with the effort because this is about the state. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Kannan?
Finale, I was going to say that's an excellent point you made. I mean, we are seeing what is going to come. We are seeing the appointments, eyebrows are being raised. People are scratching their head, and we were warned. And version number 2, we don't know how bad it's going to be, but it's going to be bad. But we have an option, we have an opportunity in Virginia on January 7th, before January 7th, starting December 11th, start to vote and push back very firmly to say Virginia, we are not going back. We are going to make a very clear message. We are going to keep both the seats in the blue column and not allow this to be snatched from us because it's all about turnout. It's all about turnout. If people know they can vote early, and we're going to do our best, we're going to work very hard. I've been knocking doors. Yesterday it was so cold, but I ran from house to house just to keep myself warm because it's how bad the wind was. And I had 3 layers of clothing.
We are the blue wall. We are the new blue wall.
We are. I'm
Thank
getting
you
ready to
both
go
for
knock.
running. I mean, in this environment too, I just want to shout out. We were just talking about courage, and Kannan, we've enjoyed working with you. So and meeting you and seeing you at the Women's Summit and just supporting everything we do.
Thank
you guys. Thank you so much for.
There's so much to do, but we need to
in.
keep these seats safe. And I'm going to be very open. This is a wonderful group. People are going to be hurt. That's the reality. The policies that the other side is going to put forth, whether it's federal employees, whether it's whatever issue we talk about, right? Reproductive rights. These challenges are coming. The only way we can protect is to tell folks to go vote. Vote early, vote by mail, show up on 7th. Let's send a strong message. Let's get a strong win for both the seats on January 7th. And then we can go right into session. And thanks to all the amazing work the Virginia Grassroots does, Louisa and her team, every one of you on this call, we can have a wonderful session, 45 days, and then we come out of that and we go straight into 100. I used to have a jingle in the caucus, in the House caucus, I would say 55 and 25. So 55 and 25. Yeah. Let's win more seats in the House. Let's get Abigail Spanberger in the governor's mansion, and then let's go have a trifecta, and that trifecta will be so many times better than the other trifecta, which should go away when we have the midterms. But anyway,
we understand the assignment. We understand the assignment.
We got it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
All right, Carrie, all you.
I'm just going to bring up. I mean, we got to roll here. We don't want to be too far behind. Everyone's got a 1 hour for lunch, and we're on it. So I want to bring up one other thing we're creating a wall around, and that's the gaming industry. And my friend Rhena Hicks, who is the executive director at Freedom Virginia, and her friend Shantell, who is an activist, Shantell Rock is an activist from Dumfries in Prince William County. They are both joining us right now to talk about gaming in Virginia. You all may have remembered that this came up last year. There was a threat of a special session. We've done battles with casinos. Personally, that weighs on my heart. So we just really wanted to bring them here as we turn our attention toward the General Assembly. It was a great segue to tell us a little bit about what we can expect from this gaming issue this session. And Rhena, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So just to back up a little bit, especially if people are not familiar with what skill games are, those they kind of look almost like little arcade games when you walk into a convenience store, a 7-Eleven, something like that. And actually I just saw, thank you, Josh, for your comment. We always do the skill games in quotes because that is what they think is the difference. They think, oh, this isn't a gambling machine or a casino game. This is a skill game. You have to have skill to win it. And it's a little bit of a bait and switch. But to back up, there's never been a bill that has passed the General Assembly that authorized this type of gaming. And so, our opinions kind of aside on the casinos, they kind of came in more in the front door. Virginians have, the option to use their voice via referendum in their localities if one is going to come to you. But these skill games just started appearing in Virginia, just showing up in 7-Elevens and gas stations and rapidly. And so they got that kind of nickname of the gray machines, you might have also called them, because they were in a gray area. And so we've tried to, nothing has passed the General Assembly in terms of regulation. So they are out there right now, unregulated, untaxed. And there's a lot of things going on now in the background. They're not proving to be very good faith actors of the General Assembly. They even recently, just as a very quick example, in the code definition for these machines, or like the these gambling devices, it names if you put money directly into a machine. And what they just did, some of the manufacturers in Virginia, is say, oh, well, we'll have people give money to the cashier instead and then load credits. And then now we're good and now it's legal. So they're taking pretty brazen actions to skirt Virginia law, for sure. And they're just
and it always,
they're
right.
just
And it always
awful.
seems like the regulators are one step behind with these guys because they're
Right.
sneaky, and they can figure it out. So we're always one step behind. And as you said, it's completely unregulated. Shantell Rock, we wanted you to help us understand from your perspective. I know one of the things Rhena and I said the other day when we were talking about this is that a casino has to get permission to go into one locality. But with these machines, they're going in everyone's neighborhood. It's like having a casino in everyone's neighborhood, and they didn't even ask for permission to be there. Shantell, tell us what's going on.
For me, living in Prince William County, the biggest issue that I have, and I want to bring this up with a caveat, and I'm sorry I am driving. My son is actually Delegate Rhena Hicks. So he and I had this conversation a couple of times, but I don't know if we're on the same wavelength, because my issue as an advocate for moms demand action was we deal with gun violence. In Prince William County, they are only placing the machines in the marginalized community, which is on the eastern side of the county. On the western side of the county, which is not predominantly African American or Hispanic, there are no machines. So for me, that's an issue. So you're already trying to manipulate and impact the community that's already at a disadvantage financially, economically. And so that's my issue with having gaming in Prince William County, well, on the eastern side of the county. If you're going to put them everywhere.
Right. And Shantell, it sounds like we're having a little difficulty hearing you because the sound quality is not fantastic. So I'm really sorry about that with you being in the car. It's a little difficult, but it does speak to the predatory nature of this industry.
Yes, it does.
Right. Yeah. So Rhena, I just want to bring you back up to tell us, where's the call to action for us right now? There's no current legislation right now. So what are we as activists supposed to be doing right now?
Yeah, I would say as any major issue in Virginia, we need to be monitoring. Freedom Virginia is certainly going to send out communication if we see a piece of legislation drop. That little story I mentioned about what they're doing to skirt law is in the courts right now. So, on one hand, I could see them bringing a bill trying to push this through. On the other hand, I could see them trying to let it work out through the courts. But I think just to echo what Shantell said, like they are placing these. And we have a map that we put out in a press release. They are placing these consistently in low-income areas. And we really view this as a regressive tax. And that's kind of why Freedom Virginia was involved. It's because we are strong believers in raising revenue, because as Democrats, we have lots and lots of good policies and things that we want to implement. And they cost a lot of money, paid family medical leave, climate concerns, K-12 education funding. And so if we want to have a conversation, which is sometimes always the pivot back to why folks want to vote for these, we need to get real about having a real revenue conversation, because we shouldn't be nickel and diming hardworking Virginians using this regressive tax.
Right. And I think you had mentioned, like, just in that JLARC study that just came out not just came out, but the JLARC study on K-12 in education and just how much is required, $3.6 billion for our K through 12 system. And you said the skills games amounts to only about 3% of that.
Yeah. And if you take, for example, like a millionaire's tax for a one budget biennium for 2 years, that's getting close to like 80% of that.
Yeah. I mean,
so if we want to talk revenue, we can talk revenue, but this is not the way to do it. And
right. And I'll tell you, I just applaud both of you and Shantell Rock for picking up the NIMBYism in a good way, not in my backyard, right? I don't want to see that. I don't want to see it. And we just love everything that Freedom Virginia is doing, Rhena. You all are rock stars out there, sticking up for people, sticking up for our low income and middle income people, and it's important work. So want to thank you both. We're going to swing back to my co-host right now so we can start wrapping this up, but we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I get pretty fired up when it comes to casinos and gambling in general. And I happen to, we had them in our area, and I don't know about you guys, but you walk into the 7-Eleven, people have pulled up stools. They're sitting there all day. It's not something that everybody wants in their neighborhood, and it's not something that we want in Virginia. It's time to take a stand and get down in the gutter with some of these slimy people. Sorry, I said it.
Oh, she said it. But Finale, you have a different opinion. You're like, let people do what they want.
Well, what I've said is that, I want more information. And I do think that, we have to sort of think about it, that we sit over here in the nice neighborhood and tell the people what they should do in the other neighborhood. So I think there's a conversation to be had. That's a factual conversation, so that if I'm going to say to someone, hey, you know what? They're making X number of dollars off of your quarters and nickels and dimes. And perhaps there's a different way for them to put better food products in the store, provide better service. They're making money, but you're not getting anything for it because your dollars that you put in, that's not an investment. So I just think it's a different conversation to be
I think it is. I think it's I'm sorry, Carrie, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say we just had a collective hand slap from the pearl clutching, right? I mean, and that is a perfect example of, activists in different spaces just trying to stick up for a neighborhood in another place, because we can see sort of the big picture. And you're right, Finale, we have to find a way to bring this home about the funding, because, if their auntie won $800 last week, then, that's going to be pretty persuasive for them, and it's fun and they like to have it. So bigger conversation for sure.
Around the holidays, I mean, gambling issues, addiction issues are really important that we talk about this stuff, because you can have your spouse down at the 7-Eleven an awful long time sometimes. Gambling is an issue. We know we're having a casino fight up here in Tysons, Virginia. And let's just say in some states that actually have a lottery, they use that to actually fund college for everybody in that state. We just don't do that in Virginia, but we definitely have, it's always about following the money. And our candidates running for office, who's taking that money from these lobbyists? These are questions about accountability and transparency that I think we'll be talking about more. So we hope everybody here is thinking about making your own kind of music, sing your own special song.
I grew up with electric company, and so that just kind of like brought it all back.
Did that just bring it all back? Yeah. Even if no one will sing along, right? So I want to thank our guests today for being here. It was really great to be back in the pocket with you guys. Being on break was also, as Finale said, we needed that time. And Carrie had talked about having that strength to do more, which she likes to do, to get herself back to a good spot. And I know having the courage to be here every week, it's because of people that come and show up. It's about our community. So I'm just really thankful that y'all are back with us. And I wanted to thank our guest, Kati Hornung, co-founder and executive and director of VoteEquality. And for the special elections, we have Kannan Srinivasan. He is going to be running in this seat in Senate 32, and JJ Singh. What a great guy. It was great to meet JJ. I didn't get to meet him before. It was really a pleasure. Thank you, JJ, for being here. He'll be running in House District 26 and talking about skilled games, predatory skilled games. Shantell Rock and also Rhena Hicks, Executive Director of Freedom Virginia. And thank you for Louisa for being here today to give us a readout of what we can do for activist therapy. And if you're not a Patreon, think about joining us and supporting us going into the holiday season. We're just so thankful for all of you that do support us. And today, in honor of the show, Irene Schubert, we love you. We're sorry you left us and it was too soon. But today's show is dedicated to you. This show is in memory of you. So great to give us that time, strength, and courage through Irene today. So join us on the other side. We hope we'll have the after chat starting at 1 p.m. on the other side. We're just over a couple minutes, guys. We didn't do too bad. What do you think?
I think we did great.
I want to thank the team up there. Thank you. We can't do without you every week. And we will follow us on YouTube and our social media, and we're on Blue Sky. Calhoun, put our Blue Sky in there. Follow us on Blue Sky. We'll see you on the other side. Awesome.